Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And we are sitting here on a Monday on the 28th of December and the election litigation process is still going on. Now, everyone in here knows what actually went down. I've talked about this in the past. Obviously, YouTube is not letting us discuss the election objectively, or they will threaten to strike down videos and eventually take down the channel. But in terms of knowing what went down, I think that I don't have to keep explaining it because everybody knows at this point. And whether you want to admit it or not, the left knows and the GOP establishment knows, but they're deciding to do absolutely nothing about it, and they've decided to abandon the president and support Biden without actually addressing the claims that the president has brought forward, without actually doing anything to help the president, because we know very well if there was an individual on the left who was running for president in the same circumstance, they would have actually ended up winning the election by now, whether it would have been with an actual audit or whether it would have been in the court system. They would have won the election by now. We would not be sitting here, but the GOP establishment is incompetent to the point where they care more about making themselves look good in the eyes of the left than they actually do in terms of caring about saving this country, because they don't. And what happened today with several votes that took place today really shows where they lie in terms of their motives, in terms of their ideology, and it's not with standing with the president, it's not even with standing with their constituents, it's with standing right next to the establishment. Many times the establishment left is the one that they're standing right next to, and as a result, the country gets screwed over because of it. As a result, we still have to deal with the election process through Congress. Now, I don't want that to be the case, but I'm not trying to be a doomer when I say that there's not a whole lot of faith that a lot of people have in the GOP establishment to get this done, and you have a lot of angry conservatives, and they are talking from a militant point of view because the GOP establishment can't get anything done in the process, and it's been this way for decades upon decades now, going back to the 1950s and 1960s. Ever since then, conservatives haven't won anything because conservatives have been succumbing to the left and operating within the left's moral framework when it comes to a lot of issues. Now, I'm not going to go through issue by issue and failure by failure in this video, but this is symptomatic of that, to the point where the GOP establishment is so incompetent that when it comes to the actual votes that Trump wants and that Trump's supporters want, you see the squad of, for some reason or another, voting more in line with the interests of Trump and Trump's base than the GOP establishment. Now, their motives are different. I'm not saying that, AOC's voting against the defense bill because she supports repealing Section 230. No, that's not why she voted the way she did. But ironically enough, her vote is in line with Trump's. At the end of the day, a no vote is a no vote, and the GOP establishment could not even deliver, but somehow AOC ends up delivering more than the Republican establishment, even though her motives are entirely different. But that just shows how incompetent the GOP establishment actually is when it comes to accomplishing anything, but that's beside the point. And most of the Republican base is united on principle behind Trump, behind Trumpian principles. That's why Donald Trump won the primary back in 2016, despite it being a system that was skewed vastly in favor of other candidates. You saw candidates drop out, try to consolidate behind somebody. It didn't matter. Donald Trump ended up winning at the end of the day, even though many states were canceling primaries, holding conventions, splitting delegates in weird ways that worked against Donald Trump. The GOP establishment worked against Trump in 2016. And like it or not, even though they've been much more subtle about it, they've been working against him in the 2020 election. But most of Trump's base and the Republican Party is behind Trump. This is much different than 2016 when you had a little bit of a civil war in the party. A lot of people succumbed to Trumpism, and rightfully so, because it's the future. America first, Trumpism, it's inevitable. That's what they say, and it's true. 72% of likely Republican voters, that's roughly 3/4, believe that their party should be more like President Trump than like the average GOP member of Congress. Now, this doesn't even take into equation the fact that Trump has shifted the average GOP member of Congress to the right of where they were 4 years ago. Now, they're not perfect, obviously, and this shows, but even then, looking back 4 years ago, it would have roughly been 60-40 in the other way, if not more. But Donald Trump and Trumpism, he united a major fraction of the Republican Party behind him. He got everyone else to vote for him, and he delivered for the majority of the Republican base. And Trumpism is the future. Republicans need to understand that going back to the days of Mitt Romney and even Marco Rubio and Dan Crenshaw and the establishment characters, that will lead to a failure, not just politically and for the country, but electorally as well. Donald Trump is the only candidate this cycle for the Republican side that could go out there and get 75 million votes. And the establishment still doesn't seem to understand this whatsoever. They just don't. And if the Republicans lose in January in Georgia, I'm not going to cry a tear about it because they have nobody to blame except for themselves. I'm not going to say anything else about the topic, but if the Republicans in Georgia end up losing their Senate election, it's really because they're establishmentarian figures who couldn't fight for Trump, who couldn't get Trump's voter base out, because that's usually what's propelled Republicans to victory in past Georgia runoff elections in the state. Look at 2008, look at 2018. That's the way that it's typically been. But in the meantime, that's beside the point. We have to talk about two important votes that took place today. Now, Disclosed.tv reported that the U.S. House overrid Trump's veto of the NDAA, which included the rejection of Section 230. Donald Trump wanted that to be removed from the bill. That's why he vetoed it. He rejected it, but they did not repeal 230 in the bill. They did not even revise 230 in the bill. And as a result, Donald Trump did not sign the bill because the bill did not fit his demands. Now, people that vetoed the bill, majority of them were Democrats. They weren't Republicans. A lot of the establishment Republicans fell in line and signed the defense bill without actually succumbing to the needs and wants of Donald Trump's base. They're not for you. The GOP establishment is not for you. And in the future, they are going to have to be destroyed. The GOP establishment is going to have to be repealed and replaced with an America First party, if that's even possible. Now, a lot of people are talking about the fact that they want to make a third party. I understand the concerns. I don't know how pragmatic that would be. I think that in some states it would be very pragmatic, like Wyoming, to have a third-party challenger go against Liz Cheney and whatever Democrat they put up, because that would be a state where you can split the vote and still end up winning. But in terms of nationwide, I've heard people talk about an America First party, a Patriot party. From a pragmatic perspective, I don't know. Now, maybe if you have to weigh the costs, and if losing for a couple cycles before you're able to somehow win with it, if that's the price we have to pay, I don't know. But we'd have to look into that. I may do a video on that. But in terms of the anger within the base, the fact that so many Republicans want to form a third party is very telling about this, because there's never been a party's establishment who has had such contempt for their own base in history, and it's just absolutely ridiculous and absolutely bizarre, but that's the way it is. 100 House Republicans overriding Trump's veto of the bill. And they're willing to sit there and be fine while you have these big tech oligarchs and corporations that are censoring conservatives on social media blatantly. Not just YouTube, but Twitter in particular has been, I believe, the worst when it comes to this. But several other people, and the people that put Trump and a lot of these other Republicans in office, they're the ones that are getting censored. They're the ones that are getting unpersoned. But the House Republicans are sitting here and they are lobbying for big tech for some reason. It doesn't make any sense why their interests are in the place that they are. But that's the way it is. But the people are waking up. The people have had enough, and the power is within the people, at least we think. If you blow out the establishment in a primary, no amount of voter F word is going to be able to overcome that. If you win by a massive enough margin, this is true. So we will see what is able to happen in 2022, but a lot of people, again, we're still focused on 2020. We got to see what happens within the next couple of weeks, which are going to set the tone for the next 4 years. But either way, something has to be done in regards to the GOP establishment. Now, Donald Trump also, being the populist that he is, wanted to increase the stimulus payments to $2,000 per person and $600 per child. He did unfortunately sign the bill, the stimulus bill that I did a video on a couple of days ago. He did end up signing that after intending to veto. However, he did redline the bill. He sent back to Congress exactly what he wanted removed, much of which was pork to foreign nationals and foreign countries that don't need the aid while we have people struggling here in America. So he did send that part back to Congress and say, this is not the way it's going to work. Bring me a better bill. But he did sign it to prevent eviction. So they essentially held Donald Trump hostage. The establishment in Congress held Trump hostage with people's livelihoods, making him sign a garbage bill that sent a lot of money away to foreign countries because it happened to do one good thing, and that was prevent evictions from taking place. A little bit of a hold off in that regard. But in terms of the Republicans voting for the increase, a lot of them did not vote for the increase. 134, actually I believe it was 132 Michigan Republicans have officially left the party. Not just Amash, but Paul Mitchell as well. Paul Mitchell, who needs to go back to selling shampoos and soaps because he's been such an abysmal rhino his entire congressional career. But looking at the vote tallies, most of the people that voted no were not in line with the interests of Trump or Trump's base. They were in line with the interests of the Republican establishment. And it's so sad to see people like Paul Gosar and people like Andy Biggs join people like Dan Crenshaw and other establishment Republicans throughout this whole process. Extremely sad to see, but either way, I'm not going to tell people that they should primary Paul Gosar because he's good on most issues, particularly social issues. But in the meantime, it's sad to see a lot of people succumb to the interests of the establishment, succumb to the interest against what Trump wants and against what Trump's base wants, and voting no on the payments, but we shouldn't have been in this position to begin with. We'll see exactly what happens to the bill in the Senate, but in terms of the people that voted yes, most of them were Democrats, including the squad, actually, ironically, voting in the interests of Donald Trump more so than most of the establishment Republicans. Very interesting to see that there. Obviously, they're doing it for different reasons. But in the meantime, it's still interesting to look at and realize that they really are not within the interests of their base, and it shows. And I don't need to pull up the political compass diagram showing where the majority of the Republican base is economically, because you do have a few fiscal hawks, but the majority of them support the stimulus, plain and simple. Like it or not, that's just the way it is, Donald Trump included. So in the meantime, we'll see exactly what happens, but it's just very, very telling that the establishment and the base are not on the same page, particularly when it comes to the issues Trump was able to run on and win on. So keep that in mind. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video down below, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media, become a member, donate to the Patreon, or subscribe. Star links in description. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.